I'm just going to allow 1 or 2 more minutes for the participants to join. Quite a few have already joined. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Um, I am going to do a small introduction. My name is Claudia Cadet. I'm Marketing Director for Ex Libris in the EMEA region. And today I'm joined by Christine Stone. She is the Director of Product Management, and she will be talking to us today about discovery. So we kind of started this webinar series to really look at the future of the libraries. And so we decided that, what we could do is actually ask for our colleagues' industry insight into what they have seen happen in the industry over the past couple of months with the pandemic, and how they see things changing for the future. And so we really asked them to kind of put pen to paper and help us look at, new pioneering approaches that people are taking, new things that are happening, and really what is most important during these times to help you redefine how you operate and how you offer services. So a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Today we are with Christine. We've already had a session with Josh. Last week, Josh spoke about the power of community apps, what the benefits are really for libraries. That was a very interesting session. And today we are going to have Christine show us really how our discovery environment is changing significantly with an increasing amount of new material and new material types. So really what we're looking at is, kind of new ways of discovery, which is just beyond the one result list option. And all of this needs to be supported to enable users to find the resources they need in indexes. And really it's the results have really grown to what we've seen beyond sort of 3 billion records. Then we are going to have Idor next week. Idor is going to speak to us about the sort of dramatic change in the way that people discover and access content, whether it's videos, whether it's music, news, media. It's not just really about smartphones and tablets versus kind of print materials. It really is about immediacy, relevancy, experience, and trust. So he's going to help us analyze the trends in the student digital experience and how that's going to impact you. Jalab is going to help us look at the opportunity for distance learning, and that is really going to be about sort of, as we need to reconsider where, when, and where and how learning happens, we really need to adapt our methodological approach. So she's going to help us explore that. Asaf and Yoel, the following week, will show us how library management systems have enabled libraries to respond and adapt to the challenges of this unique time. We'll look at specific scenarios, and we'll look ahead really to the future to propose what really are going to be the long-term ramifications. Then we will be joined by Sharona, and that will be in a session to explore really how the sense of community can help you come together and just how powerful it really is. She's going to show us a system that is designed by librarians for librarians, and just what you can do with a shared resource system, how you can reduce turnaround time and cut costs. And then finally, we'll be joined by Nadav on our last session on July 30, where he kind of describes the library as the coordinator of all research products. And what that really means is that it's time for libraries to kind of rewrite themselves for a sustainable future, where you're able to even help researchers discover, learn, and use information to improve access to resources, increase knowledge, and really save lives. So those are the sessions that we will be having over the course of the next couple of weeks. We really hope that, one of the things that you will learn is that one of the major changes we expect to see in libraries is the use of new innovative technologies. So we're going to be sharing how a culture of cooperation and innovation has really defied predictions of a kind of, demise of libraries. This means that we could be seeing further collaboration across the globe by enabling libraries in providing improved access to material and resources. What we do hope is that these innovations will also help libraries to kind of more effectively preserve and mine their collections online, and therefore also improving and redefining access for all. So we'll show you how to use technology creatively and engage with your communities by providing really a multitude of services that can open up new and exciting opportunities. Today, we are going to be joined by Christine. Christine Stone is the Director of Product Management, and she'll be looking at a topic that she's named The Meaning of Discovery, moving beyond the one search box. Christine, if you can join me online, I will hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to this session. Let me just share my desktop, just a moment. Claudia, can you just confirm that you can see
Yes.
the slides?
Okay. Yes, we can.
Slide mode. Okay, cool. All right, let me move right on to the second one. And I seem to have some problems with, okay. So that doesn't work the same as, never mind. Okay, so this is kind of the agenda of what I would like to talk about today. First of all, I say a few words about what is actually changing and what is our goal. There's a lot of things, of course, changing because of the pandemic, but really it started far before that. So the pandemic may accelerate certain things, but it's actually not that it has a very significant change in terms of there suddenly, new things coming up that they were not there before. It just kind of highlights certain processes and certain needs that we need to fulfill. I certainly will talk about CDI, the Discovery Index for the future. CDI is the main focus for us this year. We obviously planned this far before the pandemic started, but the pandemic and a lot of things coming out of it made it very clear how important this whole project is. So I talk a little bit about this. Then I would like to move on to talk about discovery beyond searching. We're talking a lot about the one search box, Google-like search, but if we look at what's happening in the market and what the users' needs are, we really need to go beyond this. This is not just like Google, there is a lot more connected to this. And connected to this, in this context, I would like to also talk about opening doors to content in special collections, because collections are not just what is electronic in the central index, it's also what you have locally and what we can, and it's about what we can do to expose this content better to the users on the web. Discovery is also a gateway. In my opinion, at least, it would be really a bad thing to have a dead end, have discovery as a dead end. I find something, I take this home, it helps me for learning and for researching, and that's fantastic. But if I don't find something in the discovery system, then I should at least have the options to go elsewhere and to find more material and other material at other places. So discovery can also serve as a gateway. And then I'm going to look ahead and talk a little bit about strategic consideration for discovery and what we're planning for the future. So let me just start with what is changing and what is our goal. I don't think that this is really particularly new to anyone. The amount of material that becomes available has been exploding over the last 10 years, and especially last 5 years maybe. And that's certainly something you probably all experience in your daily work. And we've seen this also with our discovery index and in what people index locally in their discovery systems. So it's not just more material, it's also more diverse material types. If you think back like 10 years ago, we talked about articles, we talked about books. Now we're also talking about videos, newspaper articles, podcasts, online recorded online lessons. We're talking about a lot more material types than we used to. So this also needs to be accommodated in discovery. And then, of course, user expectations changed. Again, this is nothing new. It didn't happen over the past 2 years. This has really slowly been happening over the past 10 years at least. There's an increased influence of social media and consumer platforms. Users perceive things in a different way. They expect things in a different way than like 10 years ago, 15 years ago with the classic library catalog. And we found also in recent years that the expectation from faculty is changing. So the professors and teachers have different expectations because of the more diverse material available. They also expect their students to use that material, which makes it, again, even more important to expose it to the users. And then at the same time, we have the discovery system, the single search box approach. We're ingesting a lot of different content, publisher content, repositories, research output. We have a lot of research data in the central index. We certainly ingest a lot of open access content, your library catalogs or your local collections maybe is a better word here, audiovisual content, images, videos, etc. And then also special collections like manuscripts and that sort of thing. And there's an added aspect of exploration and learning and using discovery as a gateway. And we already have this in our discovery systems. This is not something that we are starting now. You have a lot of features on Summon and on Primo that allow for exploration and learning. And that is something that we want to enhance in future because we strongly believe that this is the right way to go. So what is changing here, or what are our opportunities? Data does not stand by itself. It also gives us opportunities to build connections. There are many of such connections that we can create, and that can also create new paths. So for example, you have books and book chapters and book reviews. You have authors who author different articles or books and different co-authorships. You have, of course, citations or reference lists, which are connected to a work. You have research data sets, which may be connected to an article because someone conducted primary research. They used a certain research data set, so there's a connection there. Certainly from journals to articles, book chapters, other chapters of the same books. And there are also courses. So you have your teachers and professors at your institutions are teaching and creating a certain resource reading list. And this reading list connects items with each other. It's kind of a curated approach to connect things. And if I look at this from a discovery viewpoint, and I show you this later on with examples, if I find one item, it's interesting for me, I can find other items that actually professor put into the same course reading list. And therefore, there is a contextual connection here. So we're creating context. Context is very important. And we're creating new discovery paths. This is particularly important because there's so much data in the index now. We used to have like millions, maybe 100,000. Now we have billions. In our central index, we have 4 billion records. And it's not simple anymore to just respond with, oh, user searches something, I'm coming up with the search results. We're trying to use this huge body of data and kind of reduce it to something that is useful for the user and that the user can actually work with. And that's not a simple task to do. This is also why we need the different discovery path and why we need to add to the current discovery path and why we cannot just rely on the single search box approach. So talking about this means also I need to talk about CDI, because when we started looking at where we want to go in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, we looked at what we have and how scalable our services are for the future. And we had the Summon index and we had Primo Central, and both needed to be updated, both needed to be supported, but we also had technology which we knew would be outdated in 2 years' time. It's fine for now, it's scalable for now, but it will not be scalable anymore in a few years' time. So the decision was in order to create more operational efficiency and to have a scalable index, to create a new discovery index, which is the Central Discovery Index. And that is really our focus for this year. And you probably all know this. Many of you are switching currently from Primo Central to CDI. Those of you who are using Summon already switched in February. And I'll talk a little bit more about the rollout in a little while. Just a few more things here. So first of all, CDI is really about creating a future-proof solution for discovery, enabling us to do things in future that we may not be able to do now, or where we already see that in a couple of years' time, we would just not be able to do anything anymore with it. So CDI is really a future-proof solution for that. At the same time, and that is primarily for the Primo customers, we are switching to single activation. For Summon, we already had single activation, that via 360. That's been in place for a while. But for Primo Central, we had 2 different ways of activating things. You activated your full text on ALMA or SFX, and then you activate it for search on the Primo Central institutional profile. So this is changing with CDI. It's quite a significant change, and we appreciate that this is also quite a significant change for you. But long term, it's making things much simpler. And I think also in the context of the pandemic, we saw that suddenly it's much more important to have such single activation processes. You activate your full text on one place, and it becomes very quickly discoverable for the users, for your users. So that's something that, it's not really new, but the pandemic kind of accelerated the need for having that sort of process. So here's a little bit more for the Primo customers. So we moved the single activation to Alma. We are also moving it to SFX, but the SFX rollout only starts in August, while the Alma rollout already started in February. So these are just examples here from screenshots from Alma, but the point here is really to see the benefit. I know it's a change in mindset, and I know it also creates additional work initially, but longer term, it's really, there's a lot of benefit here. It's much less work and much less coordination. You activate something on Alma, it becomes automatically searchable in CDI. There's no need for separate activations. Also, there's automatic calculation of alternative coverage. Previously in Primo Central, if we did not index material from a certain provider directly, you had to activate alternative coverage collections for search in order to cover for that metadata. That is not necessary anymore with CDI, because in CDI, you activate the full text. For example, if you have an EBSCO collection, you activate the full text of EBSCO in Alma or SFX, and it will automatically be published to CDI. And CDI will then look across the entire index whether this is available or not in metadata. So it will automatically calculate alternative coverage. There's no need for you to do this manually anymore. No forgotten activations. That is a problem that was reported from many customers, that there was kind of a misconnection or no connection between the people who did the acquisition and the people who activated things for discovery. So, so you would purchase let's say a full text package, a full text collection, let's say Oxford Journals, and you would have it active, but actually it's not available to your users because the discovery library forgot to activate it on the discovery side. So this is not the case anymore. And then we also have quicker rights updates for the users, which takes a week in Primo Central. It takes at the moment 72 hours in CDI, but we will reduce it to 24 to 48 hours. Yeah, just screenshot. This is again about the alternative coverage, just to emphasize this again, because this question comes up over and over again. I think a lot of you just learned over time that in Primo Central you had to activate it separately. You do not need to activate this anymore separately. You activate your full text subscriptions in Alma. CDI matches all the active titles that you have on Alma with all metadata across the entire index. And that also means that your full text subscription will automatically be discoverable in Primo. So no alternative coverage activations anymore. And the second part, and that is more longer term, is that CDI gives us a focus on data intelligence. We already created a graph database which stores relationships and matches items to each other. So that will create, or creates already at the moment, new discovery paths. And that is something that we can use for the future to create even more. So this year, we're really focusing on rolling out CDI, getting everybody on CDI and making everybody happy with the way it is right now. And then we can go back to creating more discovery paths afterwards. We already have plans for that. So that creates exploration with formal and informal relationships. And it also creates more context and glanceability. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more later and show you some examples. So just back to the CDI rollout status, I'm sure many of you are interested to see where we are. I actually sent, I think yesterday, an update to the listservs about where we are specifically with the rollout to the Primo customers, but this is just summarizing it again. So all Summon customers are live with CDI since February. For Summon, we did not have the change to single activation that was already there. And also the Summon index was already on Solr, and CDI is also on Solr. So the switch for the Summon customers was pretty seamless. For the Primo customers, we need to switch to single activation, so it's more of a process here. So currently, we have 533 Primo institutions that are already live with CDI. We basically get people switching live with CDI every day. So that's increasing pretty fast. All ALMA environments are CDI enabled. Actually, I think there are 1 or 2 institutions which are not yet CDI enabled because of project related things. But all ALMA environments are in general CDI enabled. ALMA is publishing already to CDI, even if you're not yet live. And if you're not live yet with CDI, you can still test the user experience on Primo with the added and search CDI equals to parameter. And the next steps here are that we are in July, we start the general switchover for the ALMA customers to go live with CDI. And in August, we start the enablement of the SFX customers. And then we have another phase of testing for the SFX customers and then going live. And we plan that this is all done with by the end of November. I also want to point out again the documentation. We have extensive documentation about CDI specifically for the Primo customers on the content corner, which will help you with the move. We publish the schedule. We publish the differences between CDI and Primo. We publish Primo Central. We publish documentation how single activation from ALMA works. We publish the same for SFX. And we also have recorded webinars. We had a webinar last 3 weeks ago, I think, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, from June 4. It actually says June 4, for single activation. And the second part of this was run yesterday, and we will also add the recording for the second one to that same page. So please do have a look at this page if you're looking for something that should help you to find and to plan your move. Okay, so this was kind of the first part. Let's move on to discovery beyond searching. So first of all, there are 3 different areas here I would like to talk about. One is to create context in discovery. And that is really about using relationship to understand better what an item is about. So this is discovery via relationships and recommender services. The second concept here is glanceability. Glanceability is about seeing what is relevant at one glance in the result list. You have a result list, you have, of course, some snippets maybe and some metadata, but we can do things to enhance the glanceability. And then I would also like to talk about the mass and the unique, and that's about opening up special collections, specifically your local special collections, which are massively important for your users, but also for the world. Some of your institutions have fantastic collections locally, and really a researcher on the other end of the world would love to see that. So this is also something that is of key importance, I think, when you talk about discovery. So first of all, the relationship graph. I talked about this before. We already created the graph database, which connects dots between the different indexes. So we have the Summon and we have Primo. In Summon, the Summon local data is actually directly ingested into the central index. That was the same as before with the Summon index, and we did not change this. And then for Primo, we still have the Primo local discovery indexes where you ingest your local data from ALMA or from elsewhere. And we're connecting the dots in the graph database. So for example, if you have a book in your local Primo discovery index, but you have a book review in CDI, then the graph database will make the connection. Obviously, that doesn't work everywhere because, you know, metadata is metadata. It's not always fantastic, and sometimes the match just can't be done. But we're trying to enhance this as much as we can to have as many connections there as we can. Just to give an example, this is really what we have today. Context in discovery with formal relationships. We have a connection from books to book reviews, books to book chapters to other chapters of the same book. So if I'm a user, I find something, I focus on something, then from there I can go further on and look at the chapters of this book, or I can check out book reviews that are connected to this book. So it just creates a little bit more context and also another discovery path once I start with this individual item. And this is just showing how it looks like if you're clicking on the book review link. Another path here, also built on connection, is the citation trail. This is not new, neither to Primo nor for Summon. We had it first in Primo, and then we all supported it to Summon, so it's also available in Summon. That's a fantastic way to replicate something that researchers have been using for a very long time. I don't know if you remember your times at university. Mine is a little bit time ago. When I went to university, I didn't have such tools, such automatic tools. So what did I do? I went to an article. I read an article. I went through the citation list, the reference list in this article, and found other articles. And then I went to these articles, and again, I checked the reference list, and I went to the next list. So that was one of the ways I found my literature, and I know that a lot of researchers worked this way. So this is actually a very kind of traditional and old way to find literature. And what we have is a citation trail in Discovery. This is just replicating what the users have already been doing. So you see on the screen that something has citations or is cited by other items. You can click on this and you can create an entire trail here. So this kind of shows the trail on top. You have a current citation path, and you can go from one to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and find items, find material without having to run another search. So I think it's actually a very clever way to replicate what people have been doing already and what has really been proven as useful over time. Other items from the same course or the same collection, I actually come back to this later on because I'm going to talk a little bit more about collection discovery and also about courses or the gateway to courses. But we added a feature specifically to Primo if you had Leganto, that if an item is in a reading list, then you can find other items from the same reading list. You can also click on the reading lists and then go to the reading list system and read other things in that list. So that's also a very nice way to find additional material. It's curated because it was created by the professor who created the reading list. So longer term, we're looking at having recommendation suggestions, flags in the result list. We have links in the reading list and also links to the collection for collection discovery. Oh, sorry, I switched too quickly. BX, again, it's nothing new, but I think it's really important. Suggestions based on core usage. We introduced this, I think, like 10 years ago or something. We collected in the meantime a lot of data, a lot of core usage. So the data allows us to calculate what people used together. So if someone is looking at an article on your Discovery that works on Summon as well as on Primo, they can find other suggestions for other articles that people use together. A very common feature on social media and on platforms like Amazon, etc. So something that users are very used to. So this is just an example from Summon. I have chocolate and health, my favorite search, and I have a button for related articles. It does not just introduce new material, it also introduces new keywords, because that sort of connection is not based on topics or keywords. It's connected on really people thought that this was good to use together, they used it together, and that gives us an idea of what would be useful if someone is looking on an article, what other material might be useful here. Enhanced glanceability, this is something that we started last year on Summon. We have not quite introduced this yet on Primo, although there are also a few flags already available on Primo, like the open access flag. But for example, in Summon, we started flagging original research and the number of pages. That's also based on feedback that we had, that this is really improving glanceability. The user goes to the result list and see immediately if an item is original research or if it's a review article, and how many pages. That kind of helps to select what people want to read and depending also what they use it for or what they need it for. In the future, again, research and review article, we want to extend this. It's not like the flag works perfectly. Obviously, it works for where we can identify that. So in every way, things start with critical mass, but not with the perfect solution. It's good enough for people to find it useful, but obviously we need to extend this over time, and that's what we're doing. We also had some demands for flagging primary sources. That's a little bit more problematic because primary sources, that's especially for me as a historian, primary sources are in some context secondary sources and vice versa. So that's not so easy to actually flag primary sources. But that's a requirement that we had. A number of our customers raised this, so we are probably going to look for a definition. Items included in course resource list. Some of our customers have already done this with Leganto, but that's also something that we want to do. Educational material, again, we need a definition for that. But again, it's something that might be useful specifically for undergraduate users or for instructors and professors who are looking for material to use in their reading lists in their coursework. So this is something that we want to extend in the future, not really at short notice. We have some plans for Primo this year and also for Summon, but probably more next year, because this year really we focus on CDI and the rollout of CDI. That's the most important project that we have at the moment. Okay, so talking about opening doors to special collections, and that's primarily about Primo collection discovery. It's really a tool for people to expose their local valuable content. I always find that we talk a lot about the electronic content and, you know, all those wonderful things that we're ingesting into the central index, which was Primo Central and Summon Index, is now CDI. But this is really most valuable in connection or in combination with the local, the unique content, which is not like everywhere, which is not on every platform. It can only be found in your institution on your platform. So just to show some examples here, and I have a lot of more screenshots because I think it's giving just people ideas what to do with it. It's really a focus on the unique, not just the mass of data. Just to go on a little bit about this is being implemented or how this can be implemented. You have your content, obviously, your local collections indexed in the local Primo index, and you can be found in the result list. So in this case, that's a case from Liège, you have the collection record, archival material, and then you also have the individual manuscripts in the result list. So I can just search for it and I find it in the result list. But this is also an entry point to actually the collection. So if I go further and I open, for example, the manuscript, then I see a more from the same gallery function or feature on my full view on the result list. And I can find other things from the same collection. I also can access the actual collection from this full view. So this is then the actual collection, and within the collection I can browse and search in individual collections and find other things that are similar to the first thing I started with. So there are just different entry points here to a collection. First of all, I can just go to my one search, library search, the discovery system. I search and I find the manuscript or the collection, and that's my first entry point. The other entry point is to actually come from the collection. You can also just go to the collection, you promote it on your website, or if, for example, a collection is associated with a specific faculty, then you can also link to it from a faculty homepage directly into this collection. And from this collection, you can then go back to discovery or go back to the faculty homepage. So it's really to offer people different entry point. The same user is not necessarily coming from the same place. They're coming from their course reading list, they're coming from their faculty workplace, they're coming from different places, and this is really about opening things up and finding it and getting the links wherever the user is, rather than expecting the user to come to the library. So let's look at some examples that I found on our customer websites. I just had a look around worldwide. We have a lot of customers with a lot of interesting content, and this is some of the examples what I found. So some of our customers are using this for image collections. You can see the artworks collection, architecture images, and also there was one example for laboratory medicine slides. Again, also a collection that was interest for the users. And another one, kind of a typical one, letters and manuscript collections. There are wonderful collections in the different libraries. If you're a historian, that's just so fantastic to see that this is available, and I can just go to the website and browse through things and do my research. So these are just different letter collections, but also the digitized collection for medieval manuscripts. Audio and video collections, of course, are available. Maybe for specific topics, maybe just as audio material, it's also something to browse through. And then special interest collections, that is usually around topics that are interesting in a specific area. So as you see here, one is from Australia, obviously. The other one is from a US library. It's also about Trinity River. So it's like of regional interest, special interest collections that were collected by the librarians in the different libraries. Educational and open educational resources. Another example, we have a number of libraries who have this as a collection and give access to it. It's probably also particularly important for the professors and instructors, but also, of course, for the students. And then just, other things that are important for students. In one case, I had past exam papers. I saw a collection. I'm sure the students will make well use of this. It's just put together by the library and published on the library website, but you can also access it from anywhere else. And then I found a collection in some other library about managing stress and mindfulness, which they apparently found important to their students. So they published this as a collection on their library website. So just to come back to this, library discovery can really be the doorway to spatial collections, and it's a way for you to expose special collections, make them available from different websites, from different places, accommodate different entry points from your users, and really promote it to the world. So you have different entry points here. You can come via the collection from collection discovery. You can have the items in the OneSearch result list in your discovery result list. And you have the more from this collection function or feature in the full view of a record if it belongs to a specific collection. So there are different entry points here for a collection. So the next topic I'd like to talk about, and I actually come back to collection discovery for this as well, is discovery as a gateway. I would really hate to have a system where we have a discovery system and then you access it and you hit somewhere a dead end. Sometimes the result list or the result list is just not enough. You need really something else. And one way to achieve this is, for example, to use the database recommender in Summon and the resource recommender in Primo. It's both the same function, just slightly different names. And this is just giving an example. It's particularly useful if someone is just searching for a very short topic, like music in this case, or something else. And we do have quite a lot of this in our search logs. So users sometimes come to the system, they don't really know what they're looking for. So they just start a search with something fairly simple. It's nice to show a result list, but the result list may not be that meaningful for such a short topic search. And it's also good to show additional database recommendations, maybe in this case, where the user can find more information. And some of them might also be indexed in the discovery system, but it's more targeted to go to their page. And some of them might also be unique. So in this case, this is on Primo. The suggested database is a video collection, which is called the Arts in Motion. And that's kind of something very visual. And I can click on it and I go to the database. And it gives me some more information about romantic paintings. So it's just an additional way to find resources and explore resources in addition to the result list, where I have, of course, also material here. As you see, they have material like articles about romantic paintings. They're also very relevant, but maybe the user would love to actually start with the video collection and watch a video about romantic paintings and then go further and look at the written material. Discovery as a gateway to special collections. I already talked about collection discovery, so that's kind of the same thing. This is also about collection discovery. I just want to re-emphasize that this is also a very good gateway. You have the collection in your result list and you have the individual items in your result list. And in both cases, you can just click on it and you go to the gallery in this case, or the collection. So you have then further functionality to browse through the collection and find other things. And in the case of the individual items, that's the second one on this page here, you click on the full view, and then you get more from the same gallery, and you can just see other things that may also be relevant to you if you start from one of these items. So again, that's a gateway function, and it's a function to find other things that may be of interest beyond the OneSearch list. The same applies to the course reading list or course resource lists. If you have a course resource list, for example, in Leganto here, you can see this on the right-hand side. This is a screenshot of one of the Leganto resource lists. The individual items from the resource list are also in the discovery result list. So you can just find it there. Let's say you find a book. This book, Object Worlds in Ancient Egypt, it's part of a course. You can see this actually flagged on the full view. It says course. And then if you scroll down a little bit further, it says more from the same course, which recommends basically other things that were also part of this course. And then you can also click on the link and go directly in the course reading list, and you can of course also go back from there. So again, that is a gateway to other information. You may be satisfied with seeing more from the same course, but you may also want to do more and click through to the course and actually browse through the reading list. So again, another way to find more information, to learn, to expand the knowledge about the topic. Okay, so this is the summary of this part. Again, more material and more material types just require rethinking discovery. We cannot just continue to have a one search box and think that this is something that is enough for users to find things. For some users it is, because we have a lot of users who come and do a known item search. They find the item, they go home and they're happy. But generally speaking, we need more than just the one search box approach. So for us, it means that we need the new scalable central discovery index. That's essential for us to move forward. This is also why we put so many resources this year into CDI. This is really a core project for discovery for us. It means that we need to push discovery beyond searching. We need to offer more serendipitous and contextual discovery paths. Some of them I already showed you, and we're going to extend this over time. Collection discovery, I find a very important feature. For your users, but actually also for users on the other side of the world who are looking for specific manuscript, unique material that is really just in your library and that's nowhere else. And then discovery is also a gateway to specialized resources and database, to special collections, to course reading lists, and you can probably think of other things that might be useful to access from your discovery system, where people just start in the discovery system. This is the entry point, but it doesn't have to be the end point. Okay, so looking ahead, in the next slides, I'd like to talk a little bit about strategic consideration for discovery. Obviously, I already said that we are extending the services that we already have. We're going to add to the existing relationships. For example, we have the books-to-book reviews, books to other chapters, or to book chapters, and book chapters to other chapters of the same book. But at the same time, there are other relationships that are important. So for example, we're looking at the moment to create relationships between research data sets and articles, and we're looking at some other options. We need to have obviously the right metadata for this, so it requires intensive analysis, but this is something that we are planning. But let's look beyond that. So one of the really important things that actually already came up before the pandemic, but actually the pandemic kind of increased the need for it, and that's more convenient access to full text, to say electronic full text, digital full text. And we're looking at adding more direct links to PDF and HTML. We started doing this in Summon for open access because we went into an agreement with Unpaywall like 2 years ago now, or 1.5 years ago or something. We're using the Unpaywall data to create links directly to open access PDFs and HTML. And this is just a mock-up. That's not how it's going to look like, but just to give you a little bit of a view on it. And we're going to extend this to paywall content. Now, there's a lot of considerations which have to come into this, because obviously you have different rights. Not all of you have the same rights to the same platform for the same full text for the same item. So there's something that we need to take into account for everything that is paywalled. For open access, there's one open access copy and we can link you there. But for paywalled content, this is more complex. And we need to calculate first which of the platforms you have access to. And then secondly, we need to calculate the PDF or the HTML link. But that's something that we are planning to do. It's not going to come very quickly. We are not going to have this like end of this year, we're having this or something, but we are starting the project for paywall content later this year. So this is something that I hope where we have some of this at least next year, but it will take a while. So be a little bit patient, but we are going to do this, and that's one of our projects. New discovery path is something that I already discussed quite a lot in this session to deal with the increased data and diversity. And that's really just building on what we already have and extending this for the future. We focus more on data intelligence and data science for future services and capabilities. And I'm sure there are going to be more plans for this after we've finished the CDI project. It's also about creating context and learning and serendipity, finding things by chance in discovery. So we have one search box, but in addition, we have a discovery path beyond that. And that's really important. I find this very important. And the third part of what I have on this page is what we focus on is publishing data to the web. Now that's completely not my expertise. Other people are dealing with that, and we also have consultants outside the company. I just wanted to put it here because it's part of our strategic consideration that we're making this better to enable you to publish your data to Google and elsewhere in the web. So this is high up on our plan. We're going to improve this over time. And hopefully that is something that is also appreciated by your users. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. I think that's actually the last slide I have. Yes, that's the last slide I have, but I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you, Christine. It's really lovely to discover the different updates that you have for discovery. I just wanted to quickly make a mention of the Twitter hashtag, Future of Libraries 2020. If you would like to engage in a conversation or share your thoughts, feel free to go onto Twitter. We are monitoring that as well. I am going to just ask Daniela, our lovely host, if she can just confirm if there are any questions. Do we have any questions from the audiences, Daniela?
Right now, I can't see any questions.
No? Okay.
But there are questions coming. Give me a quick second. And maybe just a quick reminder that you can use the chat box or the Q&A box on the right bottom of your screen to send the questions directly to the host or the presenters, and the Q&A box is visible and open for everyone. Have a check again.
We do have a comment from Anne Cameron, who has thanked us for the presentation. She says, I work in the Moving Image Archive at the National Library of Scotland. Thank you very much for joining us, Anne. Thank you, and found this very interesting. Don't see any further questions right now. Christine, I'm going to thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you for walking us through that. A final note to everyone participating today is that if you would like to, we do have a question. Before we go then, Christine, we have a question. Could you explain again about CDI, the main purpose and function of this and possibility of users with Primo?
Okay, it's a rather big question to answer because obviously, I'm sure you probably know Primo Central or you know the Summon Index. I don't know what you use. So CDI is basically a replacement of both. You're just switching the Discovery Index. I'm not entirely sure what your question is targeting at, but first of all, it's a new technology. It's more scalable. That was important for us. So we switched to Solr, also to a new search engine, just to be able to have it scalable for the next years. So that's the key thing. Depending on what system you're using, in Summon, it was pretty seamless, but for Primo, the big change, at least for this year, is the move to single activation and to be able to activate everything from Alma or everything from SFX, and you have automatically all your full text published in CDI or searchable in CDI. We will longer term be able to ingest data faster, update data faster, and also create more relationships. So that's really, very high level what it gives us. I mean, it's probably something that we can discuss depending on what specifically you would like to know there's probably a lot more to say about this, but I hope that kind of answers it. I'd be happy if you have a follow-up question. I'd be happy to answer that.
Thanks for the answer. Perfect. So right. So if you do have any questions, I mean, you can email Christine directly. I'm sure she will be more than happy to
yes, of course.
to answer any further questions. I'm going to thank you very much for your time again. I'm going to thank all the participants for joining. Next week we will be available again, obviously, here running the third part of our webinar series with Theo, which has got much more to do about sort of student experience and the impact on academic libraries, which today is really going to, I think in today's world, is really going to redefine and change the way that we engage with our students. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I'm going to wish you a fantastic Thursday, a fantastic weekend, and we will speak next week.
Thanks, everyone.